Fuck, I knew you were going to do that.
I was like, Jacob's taking a long time.
All right.
I wanted to give him his moment of silence.
We're doing it live.
From Fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com.
Episode 300!
Episode 300 is made possible by our therapy partners, Dirty B, Myra, and Pickett. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And now, broadcasting from the churn, that's Whitney. I'm Nick. It's time
I'm
for
Jim.
some pod therapy.
We did it.
Man,
We did
it sure is.
Okay, that's just how we're going to do it from now on.
We got a whole lot of room
Well,
in the studio for episode 300 today.
A lot of room.
We got a lot of stretching room for activities.
Let's stretch out.
The balloons are taking up some of the room.
It's true. There are large 300-shaped balloons in the studio, and they are here in place of Jim.
Yeah. They're about the same size as Jim.
Jim, we mentioned on the
I think those are bigger than Jim.
I think
Those
you're
are definitely
right.
bigger
If
than
you
Jim.
spread them out, they are bigger than Jim. They're all clustered together.
They take up more space than Jim takes up. They displace more water than Jim displaces.
Yeah.
True.
I can say that having done this podcast, you know what? Okay, so this is obviously episode 300.
Uh-huh.
How many years? That's the question. I have no idea how many
I have the
years
start
it's been.
date.
Okay, hold on to that.
Okay.
Well, it's approximately
It's
one
been-
a week.
Yeah, but that's math.
So about 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, 3 years and change.
No.
Wait, no, that's wrong.
Yeah, that's definitely wrong.
So it's 6 years and change.
Yeah.
So I went the other direction with the math.
Yeah. So about 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so Whitney came into the studio today with the 300 balloons. Not 300 balloons.
I should have
Let me rephrase.
just a million balloons.
It was just a bag of 300 balloons.
Just slowed them around.
It would have been so funny if you had to take multiple trips
Yeah, hold on,
back
guys.
out to the car.
I need to do another.
I'm still doing this bit. Hold on.
And you guys are just sitting in here like, who the fuck is out there? Like, coming in and out of the studio.
That would have been hilarious. Next time.
Yeah.
No, so Whitney got a 3 balloons, a 3, a 0, and a 0, and they are huge. And I have to say, in the 6 years I've been doing this podcast, you've already done more for this podcast than I have.
I was going to ask what you did for 1 and 200.
Nothing.
Nothing? Y'all didn't do anything?
Not a single balloon.
I guarantee. There's
Not
definitely no
200
balloons. We did something, and I guarantee it was Jim that put it together.
Okay.
Because it's the same way. Actually, you know what? This is a good metaphor for how he treats birthdays as well.
Okay.
Like, things are very important. Like, there's monumental moments that he
Okay.
experiences. There's stuff like that, like birthdays and things that are very important to Jim that I've realized that are just not that important to me.
Oh, okay.
Episode 300, I would have just been like, yeah, it's episode 300. Moving on. Yeah, I'm not going to bring a whole lot of attention to it. I just kind of do it. And I'm the same way with my birthday, too. It's like, when it's my birthday, it's like,
You're like
okay,
Dwight in
it's
The
my
Office.
birthday.
It
Yeah,
is your birthday.
It is your birthday, period. Yeah, exactly.
Why the period?
Why? Yeah, I thought they'd be fun. I thought Jim would love him, and then he wasn't here.
Yeah.
That's all right. We'll
Yeah.
send him a pic.
Yep. I did, actually. He is not.
Oh, good.
He has not replied. So,
Dang it. Wah, wah.
Because he's diarrheaing.
He's busy.
yeah. We don't know. We assume. That's got to be the case. So, it's episode 300.
Yeah.
Jim was going to plan something. Jim is not here. I was going to plan something and decided not to.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Whitney saved the day.
I did. I have some thoughts. Nothing crazy besides
I
my
like that
balloons.
Whitney just agreed with the statement.
Yep.
Whitney saved the day.
I did.
Yep.
I'll accept it.
So, so you went back and actually listened to some of the beginning episodes.
I did for funsies because I haven't listened to those probably since they first aired, which is my first question. What, after doing the maths, is the first date approximately for when your first episode aired? What's the date?
I would check my phone, but I'm not subscribed to the podcast.
Perfect.
I know it was the first week of January because I know we started like right in a new year.
Okay.
It may have been January 1st
Okay.
when we posted it. The year is the thing that I'm not sure about.
Okay.
I feel like it was 2017.
Yeah, I'm
So I'm
going to
gonna
say
say
January
January 1st.
3rd, 2017.
I'll go January 1st, 2017.
January 2nd, closest without going over.
Final answer
Final answers.
is January 2nd.
Yes!
Son of a bitch!
When you said third, I was like, oh, it's right in the middle. Then he moved it.
Got the year right, though.
No.
Oh.
16.
No.
18.
Yes.
Oh, was it really?
2018. January 2nd.
I mean, it feels like I've been doing it since 2000. Easily.
Yeah.
Feels like it's been at least
black
23
hole
years of doing
time.
this.
Yeah.
23 years.
So you went back and listened to episode 1,
I did.
which I will note is not the pilot episode.
That's what I've heard.
There is a pilot episode. Laura actually found it the other day.
Oh, we got to get her to leak it.
No.
Oh.
And she will not leak it.
We'll see how much.
'Cause she is-
Patreons?
She,
Let's get it. Let's get the pilot.
yeah, go ahead and try to raise that amount of money.
She knows how bad it is.
Yeah, she is embarrassed for us. I'm not even joking. She's like, this will never see the light
I
of
just
day.
need, like, you don't have to give it, like, what descriptive wise makes it embarrassing?
Oh, God. Okay. So number one, let's talk about the production quality.
Okay.
We recorded it in Jim's office
Like,
at work.
At work. Okay.
Yeah.
Jacob's going to love this.
We didn't.
What equipment?
We didn't have microphones.
Fair.
So I think we just recorded it on his iPhone. We just
Great.
hit record.
Okay.
Let's just do this.
Okay.
So we picked a couple questions off of Reddit.
Okay.
Oh, no, actually, I think one was a study. There was a study that just came out.
Okay.
Something to do, I believe, with marijuana use with expecting mothers or something like that.
Okay.
So we talked about that, and then we picked a couple questions off of Reddit, which I don't know if you know this, but this is kind of how we first got questions.
I listened to the first episode, so yes, I do know that.
Oh, did we say it? Did we say it in there?
Yes.
That's how we got it?
Well,
Okay.
you didn't say Reddit. You said from r/ something, like, which is like a Reddit.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess you didn't say Reddit, but I was like, oh, that's a Reddit thing.
So some questions we actually got because we asked like people that we knew,
okay.
like other therapists, like, hey, we're starting this podcast. Do you have any common questions that you get from clients, blah, 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 something like
Yeah.
that. And then for Reddit, what we would do is we'd find interesting questions on Reddit.
Which I love Reddit, so I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's a great place.
And
Lots
so
of
we
information.
messaged that person, said, hey, we have this podcast. We want to use this question. Is that okay?
Oh, cool. Okay.
Because we thought about just stealing it.
yeah.
And but like, no, let's, if anything else, it'll help promote the podcast.
Yeah, they'll
So
make a
let's just-
listen and see what you say. Yeah.
And so that's how we got a lot of the first questions
Oh,
until
that's
people
cool.
started writing in.
So the quality.
Oh yeah, back to that.
Yeah.
Back to the shit
Back
show.
to the thing I want to know. Don't you can't distract me from that. Tell me
okay.
it was embarrassing.
Okay, so our idea behind doing the show, as we've kind of talked about, is to make mental health something that we can kind of talk about and still make it entertaining. So finding that balance of entertainment and education. And that has traditionally been the biggest problem with this show, is figuring out where that balance is, because we constantly have to pull one way or the other. In that episode, there was very, very little education.
Okay, just kind of like
Yes.
shooting the shit together.
Yes.
Or like, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It was very uninformative. Yeah, it was just that.
So you record it and then you listen back and you both were like, no, we can't release this. Or in the moment were you like, oh, this is going to be bad?
No, it was never intended to be released.
Oh, okay. It was just like, let's just
Yeah.
see how this feels.
So let's just do a rough draft. Let's figure out what this sounds like. And so we listened to it. We thought it was amazing. We sent it to Laura, and she was like, "Don't you dare!"
Oh my God. Laura's the savior here. She's the hero.
Yes, 100%.
Oh, Laura, yes. Okay. So we could be sitting in a different spot right now if you would have released that first episode.
Yeah. We wouldn't have a podcast.
They wouldn't be here. We'd be sitting at home.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be nice.
It would be. Yeah.
I could go home.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
Yeah.
so another thing from that first episode, you both said that on the way to recording the podcast. So I'm assuming after that, you're like, we need a recording studio. Because that was when you're at your the original studio, right? So you're on your way there, I'm guessing. You said that you thought y'all had a different name in mind for the podcast. Do you want to share what that was?
Yeah.
I was curious. I was like, I gotta ask Nick.
Well, we actually talked about this, I think, in episode 200, because Jim did a trivia thing and this came up. But this is funny because I think you will appreciate this as a therapist. Because the original name of the show was Sin City Shrinks.
Okay.
Which you'll notice is Jim's Twitter handle.
Yeah.
He put that together because that was supposed to be our Twitter handle. And then we changed it, so then he just made that his own. Okay. I hated the name.
All right.
I absolutely hated it.
Why?
Because shrink.
Yeah.
I hate that term. Because, like, no one, like, number one, shrink.
Kind of outdated.
It's outdated, but then number one, like, people don't associate a shrink with psychotherapy. It's more associated with psychiatry. And in my opinion, that's kind of how I've always associated it. And so I always felt like it was a little bit misleading in that sense that we're not psychiatrists. That we're therapists.
I don't think that way. Jacob, you're a layman. If someone says shrink, do you think medicine like psychiatry?
Not necessarily, no.
I think most people think therapists, but
okay.
Interesting.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
Either way.
I do know I'm going to start referring to Nick as a shrink, though.
You what?
I'm definitely going to start referring to Nick as a shrink. That's my friend Nick. He's a shrink.
I'm just impressed with friend. I'll take it. So I didn't really care for it.
Okay.
But then, so then we, I had mentioned in the intro, it's time for some pod therapy. And so Jim was like, okay, well, if you don't like shrink, then let's just go with pod therapy.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, cool.
Look at that.
So that's how that happened.
Organically. That's cool.
Yeah.
So in the first, you mean like the pilot episode that wasn't aired? Or
pilot episode had no name.
No name.
we didn't even have a name for what we were doing at all.
I see. So you record the episode, and then when you released it, you were like, let's name it this, because you said that in the episode.
No, so the pilot never came out.
Right, but that's in the first episode.
Yeah, so on the way to the studio to record it, then that's when we changed the name.
Oh, okay.
So so then Jim had to buy the URL, podtherapy.net.
So he went and got the @net.
@net.
Give me that net.
That's what all the cool podcasts were doing at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. That's so fun.
So what was, having gone back and listened to some of the older ones, anything different?
To be honest, Jim is pretty much the same. Like, he's not far off from where he started, I feel like. So zero growth. Zero growth in the last 5.5 years.
Zero growth.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know if you could hear the sarcasm in that sound drop there, audience, but it was there.
He sounds just like the same flow, the same like cadence. I mean, pretty close, similar attitude. And then you sound a lot more like paced and kind of cautious of how you're saying things, all of that. So that's kind of
I did back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
now you're just like,
care.
whatever.
Yeah.
I do remember too that in the beginning, I think you guys used to kind of edit some of your episodes.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. That didn't last long.
I know. So coming on again, you were like, oh no, we just record. There's no editing. I'm like, oh, okay. This is different from forever ago. But
what's really interesting is, having done this, I recognize now, like, when people, and I say this because I do it myself all the time, but when you start to talk and you,
yes, I do it all the time.
I do it too.
Yeah,
and it has always bothered. It never bothered me until we started doing this podcast, because now I hear it all the time, because we used to edit those out.
Oh,
yeah, and so it would take hours to go through and cut each one of those, and then at some point we're just like, no, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, this is normal. So
I never noticed that listening to y'all's episodes.
You will now.
Yeah.
Now I will.
Yep, you definitely will.
So I went,
sorry, everyone.
Yep. Yeah.
So I did also, for funsies, while I was going back in time, I was like, which episode was I on? Because I know we kind of jokingly, when I came back, were like, I was on one episode. Which one was it? And kind of joked around with the Patreon listeners, like, Do you know which one it is? I thought it was like episode 4, but I went back and it was episode 16.
And that surprises me because I thought it was going to be within the first 5.
Yeah, I did too. I thought y'all were just brand new baby. I mean, that's still early on, 16, but that's like a couple months in, you know?
I would say that's 4 months in.
Yeah, a couple or 4. Depends on, yeah, I guess that's true.
Weekly.
Yeah, weekly. So,
I did that math in my head.
You are
Look
good
at
at
you go.
math. You're so good. So what I noticed, it's funny you say the thing, because when I was listening to my episode, I did it so much. I was like, that's so hard. And I did the intro in that one.
Did you really?
Yes. I think it was the intro, or yeah, it was the intro, because I said, I'm Nick Tangement. I was like, some things don't change. I swear to God, that whole episode, if anyone goes back to listen to it, it sounds just like the first episode, I feel like, or whenever I was on here. It's just Jim's talking about being from Waxahachie and how there's only like 5 people in that town, which isn't true. And Waxahachie, Texas. Yeah. No, way more. And so he's talking about that. I mentioned Washita. He's like, is that a real place? Like, it's all verbatim from
it's the same episode.
It's so weird. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember it going the same way, but it did. So,
wow.
But back then I was working with juvenile sex offenders, so it went a little differently.
That's right, because that's why we brought you on to talk about that. I do remember that.
Jim read the questions way faster too. He was like flying through them. I felt like I was like, oh, now he kind of paces and reads them slower.
Well, now he does it drunk.
Oh, that helps. That'll slow you
He
down.
just has a harder time reading.
Yeah.
What you're hearing is you're interpreting it as taking his time.
Yeah.
It's just he's trying to make out the fucking words.
Yes.
He's picking which word out of the 3 he wants to say.
Go away for the vision to unblur.
I do remember listening to some of the episodes where Jacob had started chiming in more too eventually, because there were some where I didn't listen to all of them. Like I listened in the beginning. I know. And then I didn't. And then I jumped back in for a while and I was like, who is this Jacob person that's randomly on here? Like, I didn't know he was a producer. I didn't know who he was.
Still don't introduce me. It's great.
I know. I still don't know who he is. I show
Never
up every
will.
week.
No, absolutely not. Jim wanted to introduce me for a while.
Yeah.
He made a play to have me introduced at the beginning of the episode for I think he tried it for a few weeks, and Nick and I both just said absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jacob, how did you get involved with them then? Like, when did, or what happened there?
One of us, I think Matt, found you guys from Ice Cream Social.
I knew it was connected with Ice Cream Social.
Yeah,
but
so
I didn't know how.
One of us either found the show and listened to it and realized that it was a therapy show, or is this one? Did you guys send in a Jock versus Nerd?
We did.
So they had heard Ice Cream Social, knew it was a Vegas podcast, sent in a Jock versus Nerd trivia game that we play on that show.
Okay.
And I think after that, I think Matt started listening.
Yeah.
And invited Nick and Jim to come out to one of our Scoop Fests that we do.
Okay.
And so Nick and Jim met the Scoops at that. We all met and we all hung out a little bit. And then that was the Scoop Fest that we did here. We did it in this building where the Churn is now.
Okay.
And so they saw the layout and the setup, and basically said, "Can we record our show here?"
Yeah, because our old studio got broken into.
Oh, I was wondering.
Yeah, and so all of his stuff was stolen, and so we had like no place to record for a while, and so we're like, all right, well, let's call Jacob, see if we can get into the studio, and here we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was a bit of a discussion at some point that was basically like, you want to be funny between us talking about the serious topics?
You noticed there was a need for that, Jacob?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think
benefit?
I couldn't tell you for sure, but I don't think I suggested it. My memory is that I think Jim kind of said something to me about it.
Okay.
Because I think Jim was kind of noticing the flow of the show was kind of lethargic, let's say. Just going from kind of one downer topic to the next downer topic with no buffer between can get a little rough. Like this is a real peek behind the curtain now.
Yeah.
This is
Welcome.
like into like thoughts about how the show is structured.
This is
It's interesting.
This is behind the music.
It
Yeah.
is.
This is VH1.
And if you really want to dig into it, you can notice. Because I do honestly think about it as we're recording these, as especially if it's a very serious topic, which of course from time to time, we have more serious topics than others, and so especially an especially kind of depressing topic or a sad topic or anything like that, I'll kind of be gauging the room the whole time, and as I see that everyone has kind of made all the points they're going to make about it, if I'm not joking continuously throughout, I go, oh, we've all made all the points that we are going to make about this terrible thing that this person wrote in about or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's when you see me start to insert a little here's a little jab.
Yeah.
Here's a little something.
And then
by the time we get to the break for the next question, the idea is, we've lightened up again. We're ready to do our little break, do the little game, and then move on with a fresh slate to the next question.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, these are honestly the things that run through my head when we're recording.
Yeah, that's really
cool.
The
other thing, too, that was really important in kind of bringing Jacob in was that when it was just Jim and myself, we didn't have the voice of the person, lay person who wasn't a therapist.
Yeah.
And so Jim would kind of get going on his thing, and then I would just go with him in whatever direction that was going, because it's kind of we understand this.
Yep.
Our listener must understand it too. And so it wasn't really until after a while then Jacob was kind of
well, what about this?
Wait a minute. What are you guys talking about?
You've just thrown out
that doesn't make any sense.
3 different anagrams.
Yeah.
And I don't know what any of them are. Yeah.
Back it up.
I'm not entirely sure I know what an anagram is.
I was going to say an acronym.
No, I'm an anagram.
Anagram? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or an acronym.
Or an acronym.
Either one.
All of them.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a nice piece to have there. So it's just kind of the voice of the listener.
Yeah.
To be able to jump in and just be like, hey.
That's really helpful. Yeah. And I noticed that from the beginning. Yeah, that more
You're
chill.
right. I'm a hero.
You're right.
That's what I was. Yeah. I was getting there.
Yeah.
Hadn't used those words, but I was getting close.
No,
to
we
it.
seldom use those words.
Right.
But, I'm wearing a cape.
We all know.
By choice.
That's how I dress.
I'm fine with the cape. Just wear something under it.
No.
It's really all I'm saying.
Not all heroes wear underwear.
Oh my gosh. What have you noticed, Jacob, from Nick and Jim? Is there anything over time that's well, Nick, he's here. We don't know who else should be there.
Oh, this Nick.
Yeah, this guy. Yeah. Nick Tangeman.
He still doesn't know which is which. No. He knows it's Nick and Jim. He's still kind of
as long as you don't switch seats, I'm fine. It's the Nick seat.
Yeah.
That's too much.
If you start critiquing the jokes, they get worse. I'll tell you that's the secret of comedy right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so anything you've noticed over the years that's
have we
changed?
gotten better as entertainers? Know what? I don't want to know.
You know what? Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to.
No, I'm kidding. No, I don't know. They've definitely gotten more comfortable on the microphones. They've gotten more comfortable in kind of talking to the audience and being the actual faces that the audience is talking to.
Yeah.
When they, I think they were both a little uncomfortable with that. When at least when I joined them, they seemed a little uncomfortable with that. Being that it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to have somebody write to you about. Oftentimes we hear about people's worst days.
Yeah.
We hear about the up to that point, the worst day of their life. Oftentimes, that happens. That's not uncommon on this show. And I think for the two of them being in that place where it was, where they were in a position that people were sharing this with them, not unasked, but certainly unearned.
Yeah.
There had not been, and I think that's part of the extra comfort now is 300 episodes in, they probably feel a little more like they've earned that spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was, well, like I said, I mean, when we first started, we were just pulling questions from Reddit. So like
how'd you even decide how to start that? That's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we had no credibility at that point other than just, being therapists and say, well, okay, we're going to give this our best shot. The other thing too is that I'm sure you've experienced this as well coming onto the show, where it's like you're trying to provide an educated response to a person you've never met.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to do that. And so we always have to kind of soften everything with kind of like this perspective of here's our best guess at this. However, just be careful. Don't take, this is not gospel. Don't change your life based off of what we're saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we've kind of gotten to that point now where we feel a lot more comfortable being able to answer some of those questions and deal with
and
that.
Also there's an implicit implication that we don't know you. Yeah. Everything we know about the writer we've just read out loud on the air. And we might in some cases, by we I mean Nick and Jim and yourself now, who actually sit down and look at the emails that come in, because I unless it's an episode like this where I'm reading them out loud, I never see the emails.
Yeah.
I just hear them when the listener hears them. So there is an implication there that like this is all we know about the person. So and there's
you're making assumptions where it's like
there's no longer a need to voice that every single time.
Yeah. That's true. I probably said that a lot when I first got on. I'm like, well, I don't know. Is there more info? And you're like, duh.
And I mean, and,
we don't know.
And that kind of goes back to what the show is and what the show wants to be. If you want to just answer people's questions, then the answer is almost always, we'd love you to go see a therapist.
Yeah.
Make sure you talk to your therapist about these things that you've just written to us. If you want to read this letter to your therapist, that's fine. That would be the answer generic, to a lot. But it's not a therapy program. It is a program educating people about therapy.
Yeah.
And kind of what therapy is and what it can look like in some situations. I mean, we've made it very clear over the years, like, don't take advice from a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so to just read those letters and then feel more comfortable in addressing what's actually said in them and just having a conversation about it.
Yeah. What, for you, Nick, has been surprisingly difficult from starting the podcast till now? Is there anything that jumps out to you that you were like, I thought that would be easy and it wasn't, or I don't know? I mean, you both did all the work to start it. I'm just tagging along.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. You'll be carrying the load here in a minute. I don't know as anything that I think everything has been as difficult as I thought it was going to be. I knew it was, I think for me, I really have a tough time articulating a lot of thoughts. So okay, here's a deep dive into Nick's head.
Yay.
I really struggle sometimes communicating what I'm thinking because my brain goes faster than my mouth can.
Okay.
And so I've got every sentence I start, I've got 6 different ways that I can end it.
Okay.
And so I'm constantly, that's been the real struggle, is to try to be concise with what I'm trying to say and to be pointed with what I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't hear that when I listen to you, but I definitely relate to that. Starting off, I'm like,
then I'm doing
9 different pathways. Let's make it.
Then I'm doing a good job of hiding it.
Perfect.
Because that's actually one of the things that I've talked to a lot of interns that I've supervised as therapists is like it's almost kind of like boxers, where there's different ways of boxing.
Mm-hmm.
You can be the type of boxer that throws 1,000 punches just really fast and really lightly, or you can just throw one knockout punch.
Yeah.
And like trying to communicate that way is like, that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to just, I don't want to say, provide 11 sentences when 2 sentences will do. And that's probably been the biggest challenge, is to try to be able to communicate that.
Gosh. Yeah.
But I do something I think most podcasters don't do, which is I listen to the episodes.
Okay.
Which I don't really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
but I think it's like the only way that you can really get better at it.
It's your mea culpa.
Yeah, those are big words.
You're just apologizing
Oh,
to yourself every
yeah.
time. I'm so sorry. It's like the priests whipping themselves to punish themselves.
Yeah.
Like I've been terrible.
Yeah, this is
listen to my podcast.
Yeah, this is definitely the Opus Dei of podcasts. Yeah, no, but I listen back to the episodes because I'm trying to listen to myself in the same way that like a football coach is going to watch the game that they just played.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like, okay, well, how would you have said that's different? How could you have been more concise? Or there's a lot of episodes I'll listen back to and be like, shit, I can't believe I completely missed this one thing.
Yes.
But then there's other times too where like every time I'm listening to it, I don't remember what we talked about.
No.
So I'm kind of listening to it for the first time, and then I'll say, oh, I wish I would have made this point, and then I do. And then I'm like, oh shit, I guess I do know what I'm doing. That's awesome. That's a good feeling.
There we go. The whipping turns into pats on the back.
Yeah. I think that's been the biggest struggle. But then also like I think Jacob said kind of earlier, is like having, like Jim and I knew what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
We didn't know how to do it exactly.
Yeah.
So having somebody like Jacob who's like, okay, I know what we're doing. I get what you guys are saying. This is where you need to go.
Yeah.
Like,
Gives
then it's
a
been
little
like,
guidance
okay, great,
there.
cool.
Yeah.
We don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, y'all's expertise, your wheelhouse is therapy, being shrinks.
Fuck. God damn it.
and mine is entertainment. And not being a
Someone
shrink.
call it jester.
The idiot over there with a microphone. I think that's what my dad calls it.
Oh my gosh. That's really cool. Is there anything that's been super rewarding for you? Like surprisingly rewarding?
For me, it's been hearing people let us know that they got into therapy from listening to the show.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole mission, right? Is to get people comfortable with like saying that they, you know, okay, yeah, maybe I need to talk to somebody, and like, okay, well, if going to therapy is like talking to these two idiots, then I can do that, you know? And so to be able to hear people actually get into it. So I'd say that's probably the most rewarding, you know?
I was surprised, after joining you all three, I was surprised at how many people like are listening that are training to be therapists. And I don't know why that surprised me, but I just didn't really think about it from that angle. I was like, oh yeah, this would be helpful to hear, like, what are people dealing with out there? What might come my way, and how could I respond to that, or what's a direction I could go?
Those are some of the most fun questions to get, is from, you know, students or new therapists. And
I know. Gosh, so hard when you're starting out. Like, just overwhelming. You don't know what direction all the time that you want to take with it, and it can feel really daunting because it's a lot of pressure. You're like, people are putting their mental health in your care.
A lot of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
People feeling like they're going to break somebody if they do something wrong. And there's a lot of that.
That hardly ever happens, though, so don't worry about that.
Yeah, not too often.
Very rare.
I mean,
that's what insurance is for.
When I think back to like some of the stupid shit that I did when I was a new counselor.
Yeah.
You know,
like leaving the bag of oh no, that was Jim.
Yeah. That was not me. That was not me. I left a real bag of cocaine.
Oh yes. Of course.
So
you're not scared.
Yeah.
You know the consequences.
If you are a Patreon, patreon.com/therapy, Jim will answer all of these questions on Discord later on as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Homework, Jim.
Homework, Jim. You better.
Yeah.
All right. Those were all my curiosity questions from thinking back over the last few episodes, other than just what'd you do for 100 and 200, but it sounds like nothing. So
I don't remember.
Way less
No,
balloons.
we didn't do shit. You know what we did on episode 100 and episode 200?
100 jumping jacks.
No.
What?
What we did on episode 300.
Recapped everything.
Talk to Whitney.
But let me ask you, the newest member of the show, what has this been like for you since you came on?
I did the.
Yep,
I did it now. Here we go.
You'll never be able to unhear it.
Let's see. Super nervous the first time. Like so nervous. I think because I. All right, you and I both are gonna murder Jacob later. If he's not here in 2 weeks, you know why. Yeah, I was just super nervous. I definitely was worried about, maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome, like, oh, what do I have to offer people, or what insights do I have? But I think I experienced that early on, being a baby therapist out of school too. And you just have to remind yourself, like, you've been through schooling, you have experience, you have knowledge, and it's just an opinion. So it's okay. You're not hopefully going to break anyone. So
Exactly.
yeah.
You hardly ever create a joker. If you can just go like one out of 1,000 patients, that patient goes on to become, a criminal mastermind like the Joker. That's a pretty good record.
I think so. Yeah, I've definitely I've created at least a couple.
But you've been at it a long time.
Yeah, I've been at this 20 years.
Yeah. You got to look at
One
ratios.
every 10 years.
Yeah,
That's fine.
that's pretty solid.
It's fine. How much damage can one Joker do?
Now, come on.
Yeah.
Be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's been really fun. I've enjoyed it, to be honest. It's interesting to hear other perspectives, and definitely more fun than listening, where I'm like, oh, I would have said this, or I think I've said this before. Most of the time when I would answer the questions listening, I would be like, say something in my head, and then probably like 8 times out of 10, Nick would say the same thing next. So I was like, oh. So then I thought coming on, I'm like, well, I'm just going to say whatever Nick says, and that's going to be boring, but...
Fortunately, we never agree.
No,
Yeah.
we're on opposite pages. We agreed on that, but that's okay.
All right.
Good times.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're just going to do the regular show like we usually do it, and like we've done it for episodes 100 and 200 before Whitney showed up and ruined everything. We're going to talk about grieving for a pet. You are listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Smitty Scoop, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Mason Miller, Tess Miller, Dirty B. Oh, I forgot to take off Dirty B because he's a their partner. Byler T, Paris, Team Monaco, Oscar Swanrose, and Hannah Marie. And if you would like to sponsor the show, become a therapy producer. Patreon.com/therapy.
Get us to episode 400.
Get us there.
Do it.
All right. We got some trivia. I think this one came...
Oh, when did trivia start? I wanted to ask that.
Oh, great
How did
question.
Is it?
Unlike you. Good question.
I know.
I'm
Thank
kidding.
you. I'm
sorry,
working
I
on
was
it.
surprised.
That was me.
I'm working on it.
No, okay. So when we started, we created the Ther Producer.
Okay.
There was originally going to be, there's going to be 2 per episode. So I think we were originally just going to do like just 10 people.
Okay.
Could be Ther Producers.
Okay.
And then it expanded to 12. And then it expanded. And then we kind of stopped putting a number to it.
Okay.
But the idea is that if you were a Ther Producer, we were going to take 2 commercial breaks. Because we wanted some sort of way to break up the show.
Questions, yeah.
Okay. So if you were a Ther Producer, you could submit your own commercial. You could submit your own message. So you could say whatever,
a shout out, or
hey, shout out to so and so, whatever, and we would just read it live on the air. And but then only one person ever submit. No, 2. I think of 2 people that actually submitted. Judy Schneider had like an ongoing one.
Aww.
And then I think Ben threw in a couple every once in a while. But for the most part, everybody was just like, no, I don't need to. I support the show because I like what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so they would never really do anything. And then so from there, we needed something to fill in the spot. So then Jim would start making things up.
Of course.
Yeah. So, Smitty, this episode is brought to you by Smitty Scoop. Smitty Scoop, as we all know,
that's right.
and he would just make
Let's
some
make up
shit
a fact about Smitty Scoop.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we started doing that. Then that somehow evolved into trivia. And
Okay.
then it just naturally kind
like
of,
what's
Because
true
the
or
facts
not.
were trivial.
yeah, probably. Yeah. That's probably
Okay.
where that
I was
happened.
curious.
Yeah. Okay, so this comes to us. I think I forgot to write down. This is from Nurse Joey.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, what is the most difficult bone to break in the body? Go ahead with your joke.
Femur.
Okay. It was not as funny as I thought it'd
Jacob, every time.
be. Okay, A, femur.
Okay.
I know Mike.
B, scapula. Scapula.
Oh, okay.
That sounds better. C, third metatarsal.
Okay.
Or D, oh my God. This is just to make me read medical. Calcanus? Calcanus. CALCANEUS.
Femur.
Heel bone. That's the heel bone.
Ah.
Okay.
See, this is the thing. It's going to be, what do they mean by difficult? Is it the bone that, like, if you took it out of the body and applied pressure to it, would require the most pressure to break? Or is there like a bone that's in your body somewhere that is basically hidden?
So it'd be hard to break
So
because
it's
it's
just hard to
surrounded
get
by
to it. Because, like,
Here's how
it'd be a very skinny little tiny little twig bone, but it's, in the middle of your stomach or something. I don't know.
Here's how I interpret this. You've got $1 million and 1 minute to break a bone, which is going to be the hardest to break.
Ooh.
I think that's what
I don't know. Is the body is the body a living person, or are they dead?
I assume it's your bone. I think it's $1 million. You got to break your own bone.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. I don't make the rules.
Read them
right?
again.
You're kind of
Femur
making the rules.
and the heel bone.
Right now.
Femur,
Femur.
scapula, shoulder blade,
Okay.
third metatarsal, which is the middle of the foot connected to the middle toe, or the heel bone.
Scapula.
I'm gonna say femur.
Yeah, I got to stick with femur. I know that femur is like the thickest bone.
Yeah,
I think.
I think you're probably right, but I'm going with scapula.
I think it's the biggest bone in you, unless I'm fucking you.
But
there it
is.
Nick wanted a penis joke earlier.
He was asking for it. You gave it
Waited
to him.
5 minutes for that. All right. It is the scapula.
There you go. Is there an explanation?
No.
Because I'm curious. Okay, great.
I have a bone to pick. A bone trivia question.
Okay.
It is, how much do your bones weigh? Do you know this answer? I just
All
discovered
combined?
this. Yeah, if you just had your bones.
As a percentage or like a total?
No, like weight.
Because everybody is going to have roughly the same weight of bone, I guess, in their body, right?
Well, people have different bone densities.
Yeah, but how much did that really change it?
Okay, well, it's not going to be anything light. I would say, but it's got to be because some people weigh
light.
very little.
Yeah.
I'll say 50 pounds.
What do you think, Jacob?
Can I just take the under? I don't know, 40 pounds.
Okay. Peter was guessing like 20 to 25. 5.5 to 6.5 pounds.
What? Wow. Why can't we fly?
I thought the skull by itself weighed more
No,
than
your
that.
head.
Oh,
with
head.
your brain in it.
Head
is
weighs
8
like
pounds.
8 pounds.
Yes, your bones only weigh 5.5 to 6.5 pounds, depending on who you are. That's the whole range, I feel like.
Wow.
Somebody correct me out if I'm wrong, but that's what I
Okay.
did that scan thing I told you about.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how much your bones weigh. I was like, okay.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Last one. Which natural source was the original aspirin extracted from? What natural source was the original aspirin?
So
So
healthcentral.com
breathing?
has a different answer.
Dang it, what'd it say?
Healthcentral.com's is roughly 15% of your total body weight.
For your bones?
Yeah. That's what this website says. I don't know who's right.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
What's the question?
Is it like breathing? Breathing, aspirating? Is that what you said?
aspiring.
Aspiring.
I don't know what that means. Which natural source was the original aspiring extracted from? Aloe vera plants, eucalyptus leaves, deer urine, willow tree bark.
Aloe vera plants, final answer.
Obviously,
Tree
deer
bark.
urine. It's got to be deer urine.
I said tree bark.
Willow tree bark.
What a roll with the guessing.
Aspirin.
Oh.
That's supposed to say aspirin.
Oh, okay.
Because aspirin comes from willow tree bark.
Okay. It must have auto-corrected then.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because that says that's spelled aspiring. Like I'm an aspiring actor.
Yeah. Okay.
Aspirin.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, it is willow tree bark.
I
Native
got
Americans were the first documented people to use willow bark to soothe headaches and other pain by creating a tea or chewing on the willow tree bark.
Wow.
I genuinely knew that.
That is amazing, Jacob, and you got it wrong.
And
Damn
I got it wrong.
Damn it.
It was later extracted by Felix Hoffmann, a German scientist working for the Bayer company, and is now produced synthetically.
Felix.
Yeah.
Does Laura know him? German scientist. No, I don't think she
I hear
does.
that Bayer company might be doing pretty well these days.
Yeah.
Never heard of him.
Great.
All right, moving on.
A grieving pet from Anonymous. Hi, friends. Long time, first time. I'm writing to ask for advice on dealing with the loss of my best friend and am quickly becoming very alone. A little background. My dog, Duke, started as my ex-wife's dog. 3 years ago, both of them moved in with me, and Duke and I became very attached very quickly. My ex-wife and I recently decided that marriage was not for us, and our divorce was finalized probably a week ago, depending on when you read this. So I don't know how long ago it was. The decision was completely mutual, and we are still very close and good friends. Since she moved out, she comes over a couple of times a week to visit Duke and me. I am with Duke almost all of the time since I bring him to work and don't do a lot socially. All of my friends live in different states. My mom, dad, sister, and I became very close over the past 3 years due to all of us working together. My dad and I work in the office together every day, and until the beginning of this summer, my sister worked 3 days a week. My sister is my best friend, so when she moved to another state in May, it was very difficult for me, but we have a loosely scheduled FaceTime call every day at 9, so we are still as close as we can be considering the distance. A month after that, my parents bought a vacation home in another state and now spend 2 to 3 weeks a month there. This means that Duke and I are the only two in the office the other 1 or 2 weeks, and I will frequently go entire days without seeing another person face to face. Earlier this year, my ex-wife and I learned that Duke has a neurological disease and is losing all feeling in his legs, and it will progress towards his front. We were told it would become a quality of life issue, and it was only a matter of time until we had to put him down. Well, that time is coming. He is having trouble standing and walking and is starting to lose control of his bowels. I'm starting to think that he won't make it through the year. I have a history of bipolar type 2 and major depressive disorder and have been in therapy for the past 6 years, and I have an appointment once a month on average. I'm very worried that I'm going to become completely non-functional or worse when we have to put him down. I'm trying to prepare myself by acknowledging what's coming and thinking about how grateful I am that I've had the time with him, but I end up crying every time. Some people have told me that getting a dog now will help ease the transition, but I don't know how they would get along considering Duke can barely walk as it is. I've been trying to get into more hobbies and have a more social life, but I've been struggling with that since my hobbies are solo activities, reading, and woodworking. I did join my library's book club, but we only meet once a quarter. Sorry for the sob story, but I really need advice on dealing with what's coming and how to move on. Pronouns are he and him.
Wow. Okay.
That's so
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's terrible. You ever had to deal with pet loss?
Not really. That sounds horrible. The cat we have now is going to be my first experience with having a cat for a long time, or any animal for a long time.
Yeah.
We had like one or two.
And I'm going to kill that cat.
Oh no. Jacob's not allowed over. That's where she went. No, we had like a dog or two when we were growing up, but my brother with the ADHD, he would like not treat the animals right. Not like outwardly mean. He just would do impulsive things with them. Like he'd leave the door open and they'd run out in the street. Like we couldn't keep an animal. So I didn't have them growing up, and then we travel a lot. So we've never taken on the responsibility of a dog.
Yeah. So I never had pets until my ex-wife, similar story.
Yeah.
She had a dog, and then it became our dog.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I mean, growing up, my parents never had allowed us to have any pets.
Wow.
Yeah. So
an outdoor dog? That's like what I feel like. Wow.
Well,
okay.
Iowans do.
Yeah, it was like country folk.
That's what's interesting.
Yeah, like we had a dog when I was a kid, but that meant we put food outside a couple of times a day.
Yeah.
And you'd see the dog.
And maybe
every
it
so
had
often.
a little shelter to hang out in, like a covered area or something. Nah.
Yeah, so my parents both grew up on a farm. I didn't grow up on a farm, so I grew up in town. So from their perspective, they're like,
for most city people is a farm.
Yeah, exactly.
A town in Iowa looks like a farm to most people.
2,000 people.
Yeah.
So I was across the street from the farm.
Yeah.
But yeah, from my parents' perspective, they're like, well, why would we have a dog? We live in town. Like there was no, that just didn't compute to them.
Okay.
And then obviously we weren't responsible enough to take care of it anyway, which is the same thing that
leave the door open
say.
And they'd run out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very similar story. Like, when when Sadie died, that was my first experience with pet loss. And we had already had Layla at that point. So Layla's our little beagle. And so she was a puppy.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So yeah. And so
she's got so much white hair and foggy eyes.
I know.
Now.
Yeah, she's so old. Yeah. 14 years old. So yeah, that was a long time ago. So for me, that was the first loss. And I can tell you my experience was terrible. It was absolutely terrible going to the vet and everything, like when because it was a very similar story, like she had cancer, like bone cancer, her back leg was not working. She couldn't hardly walk anymore. Like she loved car rides and she couldn't get up into the car anymore. And it was like, okay, it's time. But like at that point, like we knew like the date that we had scheduled.
Right.
And so everything leading up to that became increasingly more difficult because every car ride was like, okay, this is her last car ride. Every, when we go to the park, like, oh, this is the last time we go to the park, and so that made it really, really difficult. And so like, going to the vet, going through that experience, that I bawled my eyes out. It was absolutely terrible. Then when I got home, I had Layla, and it was hard because like, she's kind of like trying to put together the pieces like, well, where's Sadie, and so that was kind of difficult. But then like, I just spent time with Layla and I really focused my time with her. And so that helped a lot. So there is something, I think, to that transition.
I've heard multiple people say that too, like having a pet before, especially with dogs, before the other one passes really seems to help a lot. And that sounds difficult because it sounds like your current dog, Duke, is needing a lot of help too. So taking on a new animal might just be a lot for you. Like,
yeah, it may not be worth it to bring in a new pet.
I wouldn't bring in a new pet.
Yeah, I don't think I would either. I think if you already had one, it would probably make that transition easier, but like there's a lot going on right now. I don't know as if you want to start to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when our last dog died, I really advocated very strongly that we not get another pet immediately. And SJ found the two dogs that we have now. They were up for adoption, and so we got them probably, I mean, it was quite a few months later. It wasn't a year later, but it was quite a few months later, and we really kind of got them because they needed somewhere to go.
It wasn't like you were seeking another dog. It was
SJ was seeking more than I was.
Yeah.
I wasn't seeking at all. But SJ was kind of casually on Facebook groups and things like that had dachshund rescues, the wiener dogs that we have. So that kind of thing. I don't know. I'm always kind of a proponent of deal with the grief however you're going to deal with that grief, and then take a break from having an animal. I don't think I'm in the majority in this thought, though. I think most people disagree with me. But my thought is kind of figure out, let me get my life back together without this animal now, and do that, kind of focus on that, and then I'll decide if I want to get a new animal or not. Because I mean, you don't want to get an animal just to me. I don't think you want to get an animal just because, I'm going to rephrase that entirely. I don't want to get an animal just to help me deal with another animal not being there anymore.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to do. I think a lot of people disagree with me entirely. And that's cool too.
I actually don't disagree with you. I kind of do agree with you. I think that for me, I imagine the next time I have to go through this, it would be nice to have a break.
Yeah.
And to be able to process all of that. And then if I decide later, then I feel like I'm making a choice to have a dog.
Right.
As opposed to making the choice to have a distraction.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's just me. I mean, Laura lost her cat. And she says she'll never have another cat again. Aww. And that's just kind of her perspective.
Because she hated
She's
that
like,
cat.
It
was a terrible cat.
Partying about it next
I could barely finish the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
I mean, that's how she got her gluten intolerance. You eat a cat, bam, intolerant to gluten.
All of a sudden.
You see, we got through some serious stuff, and now I'm inserting a couple of jokes. They're just light jokes. They're not barn burners. They're just But we're
Just
getting
about
back
eating,
into the rhythm
about
of
eating
it.
cats.
Yeah.
just light ones.
But the one piece of advice that I would give, honestly, if you're concerned about the day that you have to put Duke down, which I see, I can understand that. Don't do that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely would not go to the vet alone. If you can go, you said your sister's your best friend, so if your sister can come with you, if you're if another family member that you're very close to can come with you, and kind of hang out for maybe at least the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe go back to the house and have a meal after having to do it. Something. That's kind of my best advice on that is don't do that part alone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I would, take some time off work if you need to. Take some time to just, to cope from this. Because I think the other thing too is like, obviously this is not the same as losing a family member or losing a child or something like that, but it's also very serious, and I think sometimes
it's not nothing.
Yeah, it exactly. It's not nothing. It does mean a lot to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so you shouldn't minimize it. Take some time away, to just kind of cope with that, deal with it. You said you enjoy woodworking. Build something. Build like a memorial, or build something like that. That might be a way to kind of,
Absolutely.
keep that memory alive.
Yeah. I like that, putting your passion into something that will help you remember your pet. I was just going to touch on really quick, mentioning the history or current bipolar diagnosis and major depressive disorder. If there comes a time, or I guess when the time comes, I should say, when you may have to schedule an appointment to put Duke down, letting your therapist know that you may want to increase some of those sessions for a minute, because sometimes, not always, but sometimes there can be things that trigger certain episodes to kind of flare up, especially when you're in a heightened emotional state or depressed emotional state, either way, whichever way that pendulum swings. I've just noticed with clients I work with, sometimes if there's a big loss or something like that, it can just trigger a flare up in those emotions.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's kind of one of those things where, like, if the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, and if you know that like there are certain things that are going to trigger a reaction, then let's make decisions in advance so we don't have to make big decisions in a stressful moment.
Yeah.
And having going from once a month therapy sessions to once a week therapy sessions just in this in the interim, then what you're doing is you're kind of putting, to use kind of a bowling analogy, you're kind of putting the bumper rails up, right?
Yeah.
So like if things go a little wonky, it's like, well, I'm going to see my therapist in a couple days, and so it's not going to, you're limiting the damage. You've got somebody that's going to be there that's going to help and support you.
Yeah. Like I had a toothache 3 days ago.
Oh.
And I genuinely went like, it sucks. I woke up with a fucking toothache.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you know what I have on Monday is I have a dentist appointment already.
Yeah.
And it honestly made me feel better.
That is.
I was like, I'm
make it.
going to be at the dentist in like 2 or 3 days anyway. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good, it's kind of just a secure feeling. It kind of helps you.
Yeah.
Your
it turned out to be nothing, by the way.
Oh, good.
good.
Yeah,
I was worried.
Tooth's fine.
They say the toothaches aren't good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I stabbed my gum with something like that. I think my gum was just swelling up right under that tooth. I think that's all it was.
Was it the popcorn?
Yep. I've been
Like
still picking up popcorn shells out of me. Anyway, it kind of goes back to the old saying, like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
Kind of plan some stuff out. Do something that, you've got a lot of really interesting hobbies, kind of use some of those hobbies to help, get into that. You enjoy reading, plan for a couple books that you're going to read in this time period.
See if maybe your family will, you mentioned being really close with your family. See if when that is planned, maybe someone, like I think Jacob mentioned, having someone go with you to that appointment. Like, see if one of them will go.
You said that the family was kind of around the office about 2 weeks a month now.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe plan to do this during a couple of weeks stint when they're around, when everybody's around.
Yeah, that'd be
if that's
great.
if that's your support system, then lean on them. Lean on that support system.
Well, it sounds like you've got a good relationship too with the ex. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm sure
yeah.
the ex is going to be involved in this
I'm sure
process
this is gonna be
as
part
well.
of it, yep.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
So it's
It's all of those things. Mainly, we're saying don't pull this car up a hill by yourself.
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good summary.
Yeah, right back in. Let us know how this goes.
Please
Yes.
do. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about going all Tony Robbins on your friend. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Smitty Scoop, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Mason Miller, Tess Miller, Byler T, Paris, Team Monaco, Oscar Swan Roast, and Hannah Marie. And if you want to sponsor the show, become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy.
Do it.
Okay.
Trivia.
Which of these drugs will turn off, in quotes, turn off the human heart within 6 to 10 seconds when administered intravenously?
That's the good stuff
Air.
there. That's
Yeah.
she's
Like
not wrong.
air.
I
Okay,
know.
go on. Sorry.
Okay. Adenosine, barium sulfate, ciprofloxacin, or D, trick question, no drug can do that.
I'm going to say barium sulfate.
I thought about saying that, but I want to pick a different one. So was that A?
I think that was
Adenosine?
B.
I'll do A.
There you go.
That's adenosine.
Yeah, that one.
I'll go with C.
Okay.
All right.
Is it a trick question?
That might be. It's kind of setting up that way.
It
isn't
is. Or is that the obvious answer? I'm a bad test taker.
it? Who said adenosine?
I did.
It's adenosine.
All right.
It is used in
I'm good
emergency
guessing.
room medication. It is used as an emergency medication only. It's a hormone produced naturally in the body and is part of the cascade that puts us to sleep at night. Oh. We use it to turn it off and turn it back on again. Use it as a turn it off, turn it back on again mechanism when the heart is not beating correctly.
Oh, wow.
It is.
I'm really glad you explained what it was used for,
Yeah.
because I was very curious about that.
Yeah.
Has a short half-life of approximately 10 seconds, at which point the heart starts beating again on its own, theoretically. If not,
Solid
we
theory.
will jumpstart you. Interesting.
Okay.
Well, because that's kind of what I heard as far as like the shockers, the
Uh-huh.
The defibrillator?
defibrillator. Thank you. Jesus Christ, that sounds so stupid. But that like it doesn't actually start your heart; it stops it.
Oh.
So if you have just a little bit of a heartbeat, it stops it.
And then your body
And
is
then
like,
your
your heart stops, so it
Yeah,
makes
and then
it...
it like gets
it
going.
triggers something, a
Interesting.
chemical to start
Yeah.
your heart. Oh,
Keep in mind, I'm a social worker,
Right.
so I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to this. That's just what I heard.
Nick knows a lot about this stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you know what? That's it, because we only got one more question. I didn't plan these out very well.
That's something that's changed since the first
Yep.
episodes. Nick used to plan shit more.
Yeah.
How to Motivate My Friend from Lovely Spark. Hello, my favorite psychology gurus. Parentheses, shrinks. They didn't really put that.
Yeah, thank you.
I love the show and eagerly await each new episode. I wanted to write in for some advice. I find myself in a tricky situation. I will try to be brief with the backstory, but I feel like it's important. Trigger warning for suicide. About 20 years ago, I dated my friend Jay for about a year. When I met her, she was just starting to transition from male to female. After we broke up, we remained friends and even lived together for about 8 years as roommates. Jay has told me that those 8 years were the best times of her life. I got married and moved about 3 hours away from Jay, and she got her own place by herself. I was able to come and visit her and my friends who lived there a few times a month for a couple of years. Then my visits became less and less as I had more commitments closer to home. Jay got a job working for the state because she heard it was a good, stable job with a good retirement plan. By this time, she was fully transitioned and had gender-affirming surgery that helped her feel more comfortable in her own body. From conversations with her, I got the feeling that she had been chasing the goals of surgery and a good, stable job for a long time, thinking that once she had finally managed to get them, she would be happy. But even after attaining her goals, she was depressed. She talked to me about the inability to fall asleep at a good hour, which left her exhausted when she had to get up early to go to the office. She also started getting terrible migraine headaches that medication just did not seem to help with. Her breaking point was when her grandmother died. She had lived with her grandparents for a good part of her life and talked daily with her grandmother. Without the support and guidance from her grandma, being exhausted by her job and in pain from migraines, she made a plan to commit suicide. She quit her job and lived on what money she had left, all while pretending everything was fine with her friends. The day before she was going to be forcibly evicted from her apartment, she left notes for her friends and only by luck did not manage to kill herself. I got a goodbye email the morning after, followed by an email from a friend saying that she's alive and in a hospital clinic. She was homeless and in mountains of debt, but she was alive. Our friend group made her promise not to attempt suicide again, and she has held true to her word since then. Her friend Elle offered to take her in, but needed time to get things ready for Jay to move in with her. Elle also started paperwork with the state to get Jay on disability for extreme depression and migraines. It was denied and was not appealed. I offered to house Jay until Elle was ready for her to move in. When Jay got out of the hospital, I took her to doctor's appointments and spent a lot of time with her. She was still extremely depressed, but was excited to live with Elle and was picturing herself as a kind of housewife for her. Jay has said on several occasions that she would rather die than go back to work, and the way she describes it, it almost sounds like severe anxiety or fear of going to work. When she moved in with Elle, things did not go well. Elle was not prepared to deal with this level of care for Jay on top of working her ass off at several jobs. Elle kicked Jay out of her house. Rather than let my friend be homeless, I put Jay's things in storage and brought her to live with us for about a year. Jay doesn't drive. It was like having a sulky teenager living with us. I took her to doctor's appointments and therapy sessions nearby. Most of the time, she just stayed in our guest room playing video games or watching TV. She didn't help out very much around the house, and we were at a loss for what to do. We needed to get her out of the house because this living situation was not going well for any of us. We helped her move into her own place in the SAC, SAC, where we lived and have friends in common. Maybe Sacramento?
That's
I don't know.
I perceive that as Sacramento, but I don't know.
3 hours away, and offered to temporarily pay for her living situation. We did not set a timeline for how long our support would last. She is still living in the same place that I set her up with, and we have been paying for about 4 years. We are fortunate to be in a position where we can afford to support her, but it doesn't feel like she's really living. She's just alive. She is still extremely depressed. Many medications were tried, but nothing seemed to make a big difference. The counseling that she's able to get through the county has been hit or miss. Most of the care that she's been able to get with her insurance has been with the psychology students fresh out of school who moved on once they finished their required hours, and she would need to start fresh with a new counselor. It's hard for me to fully understand the situation that she is in now because I am living 3 hours away and have my own busy life with a kiddo to take care of. Jay and I have slowly drifted apart, and we rarely talk anymore. I see her a few times a year now when I go to the town that she lives in. Our friends try to get her out of the house a couple of times a week to hang out. Otherwise, she's just at home on a screen. I don't have a lot of hope that she will ever get to a point where she could support herself since she still refuses to get a job. If we were to withdraw our support, she would be homeless, and I think that she would choose death over that. The only family she has is a drunk deadbeat dad, so there's no help from any of her family either. I'm feeling pretty stuck without an end-game plan. Any advice would be much appreciated. That's a lovely spark, she and her.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you care so deeply for your friend. I'm just impressed by the level of care and support you've shown them.
For 4 years.
For 4 years.
I don't know that I would buy Whitney dinner tonight.
No, he wouldn't. No. I asked him to, and he said no.
No, I won't do it.
He won't.
McDonald's has a $1 menu.
He said no.
I said no.
I know. That's
no means no, Nick.
Terrible.
I know. And I brought him
I'd
these
be willing
balloons.
to go halves on the $1 menu.
Hey, Jacob,
See?
no.
I said no.
He said no. No means no. It's not like me offering the right. Oh my gosh. Depression can be so challenging when you're part of the support system for somebody who is in the thick of it. And I
mean, this is I don't mean this to say that Jay's the friend, right?
Yeah.
That Jay is doing any of this on purpose.
No.
But this is a hostage situation.
It is. This is exactly what it is. Yeah.
I mean, you are being held, not on purpose, but you are being held hostage by your friend. And like, so as many problems as Jay has, those problems are coming to you now as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was one sentence in here that I highlighted because I thought I kind of wanted to come back to it. We did not set a timeline for how long our support would last.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's very important. And then I think kind of to rephrase or reword it, it's not necessarily how long your support would last, but how long this type of support would last.
Right.
Because I want to remind you that there's many different levels and ways in which you could support somebody. And I think this is a good lesson for most people to kind of establish, we will always support you. You're a friend. We're going to be here forever. Mm-hmm. However, what that support looks like is allowed to change. You don't have to make a commitment that you have to pay for her entire living expenses for 4 years.
Right.
Like, you are very fortunate that you're in a position that you're able to do that. Because a lot of us aren't. I wouldn't be able to do that for a friend,
And I mean, I bet there are conversations with Lady Lovely Sparks partner.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
There's things like we could have a vacation home.
Mm-hmm.
At that point,
we could be paying for a second place for ourselves, but we're paying for there are lots of hard conversations to get had when that's happening, unless you're very, very doing very well financially.
Yeah.
And you can still afford that vacation house anyway. But I get the feeling that that's not the case. I get the feeling that you don't have millions in the bank account per se.
Yeah. So I think it's fine to be able to set boundaries like that. I mean, to me, it sounds like this level of depression seems like this is a good case for disability.
That's what I was thinking too.
And that's what it's there for. So, I mean, the fact that it was denied but never appealed.
You have to go in for the appeal, sometimes 2 times, 3 times, like till you get it. My understanding is that's how it works almost nobody gets it the first time. You have to appeal it.
You got to want it. You got to want it enough, and you have to prove it to them that you want it. It's always bullshit.
Yeah.
I always hate that.
Jacob can't ever
do it. I do kind of feel like that's probably the first step in getting, moving forward.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, Jacob said it, and I think this is exactly what I thought too. When you got to the last sentence, with this is like, this is a hostage situation. This is exactly what this is. And I see this all the time in substance use treatment.
Sure.
Where it's like, parents are looking at their, adult children and like, well, I have to pay for his house. I have to pay for his expenses. I have to pay for all this because if I don't, he's going to go homeless. And if he goes homeless, he's going to end up killing himself. Yeah. And it's like, that's exactly what this is. It's a hostage situation. Yeah. It's like, how much do you love me? Well, you love me enough. Okay, great. Then you have to continue to do this. Otherwise, I will take the thing that you love and I will destroy it. And that you can't live like that. And so I feel like the first thing that you have to do is kind of get out from underneath this rock. And I think, appealing that disability is probably your best way to do that for the next step.
Yeah. I have a family member, not quite to that extent, but kind of a similar scenario. And our other family members would basically, their support was helping them get the like SSDI or whatever it is to get them housing that's really affordable, to get them on lists for that, to get medications covered, to get all these things
to help
covered to help
so
with
you don't have day-to-day stuff and the hard stuff.
And you may have to kind of stay on top of that for them. You don't want that to lapse.
But honestly,
that's more of a
that's going to be less work.
Yes,
I think than
I think
actually, than what you're currently doing.
Yeah.
And of course, I feel like we have to say it. This person is not your responsibility, and that's something that you are not going to be able to do anything about. Like, but I want to at least say it out loud. You can't be responsible for this person. you can't be wholly responsible for this person. Now then, you sound like a wonderful person. You're certainly a very giving person. I bet me saying that, and even if you accept that, you're not going to change your behavior based on that. But you gotta keep that at least somewhere in your mind that this is not. This is in some ways a chosen problem for you. And that, I say that, and I think it sounds very cold, but I mean, you are deciding to do this for your friend. You're not forced to do this. You're not legally responsible for them or ethically responsible for them or anything else. And that's, man, I don't know. It's real tough.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, you could just make that choice to just not do it anymore.
Yeah.
That, of course, has consequences.
I bet you're not gonna.
Yeah. And that would be a really tough decision to have to make.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a very unfair situation that you're kind of stuck in this
If
spot.
you're going to continue doing this, I would look into, I would do things like talk to your accountant and see what it takes to actually have this person be declared a dependent on you. So that'll help you out
a really
financially.
great point. Yeah.
And the disability stuff. I mean, appeal it. Write your fucking congressman if you have to. Do whatever you have to do, and get that ball rolling again. Because at the very least, I think it'll help on your end if you can kind of alleviate that financial pressure a little bit. That'll probably help your mental state going forward, and then hopefully you'll be able in a better spot to find a more permanent solution.
Yeah. I think trying to find a way to gently talk with your friend a little bit more about this, and not, you don't have to come at them from a place of, look, I can't do this anymore, but more just checking in with them. It sounds like there's almost a normalcy that's been established of, hey, maybe their rent's on like auto pay and it withdraws from your account, and your life's gotten much busier and you haven't checked in as much. Maybe let's start checking in a little more often short term, and mentioning that you want to help them reapply for disability, and kind of reestablishing that boundary of, hey, I can't do this forever. You still don't have to set that end date if you're not comfortable with that yet, but it's planting that seed of Jay knowing like it will end at some point, but I'm going to still be here for you to try and get you through to the next step, whatever that is.
Yeah. And I agree. I don't think you need to necessarily go in there with like, okay, you've got 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Because that's going to be very
shocking
difficult.
and challenging.
But I like what you said with the idea of, instead of framing it as like, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z, kind of looking at like, hey, I'm concerned because this isn't going to be sustainable. And so we need to let's come up with a plan of how we move you from where you're at now to something that is more sustainable, where you're going to be secure.
Yeah.
Because here's the other thing that you need to remember too. If something happens to you and your family, then now she's out of luck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not just about like, hey, we need to get you on your own because you're causing us financial hardship.
Yeah.
It's also, hey, this is what's best for you.
Yeah, let's spin it positively.
Yeah, because this is what you're going to need in order to be able to, if something bad happens to us, we want to make sure that you're okay, and it's not going to happen under this current arrangement.
Yeah.
So you can kind of rephrase it that way. But yeah, I think, and I can't remember, I guess I don't remember hearing whether or not you had somebody involved at the county or state level as far as a social worker who's working on this case.
They didn't say,
but
they said they've been getting counseling through the county that's been hit or miss because it's mostly psych students.
Yeah. So whoever,
ask them for a referral though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this person, whoever this person is that is prescribing the medication or providing the treatment, has access and will be involved in the process of filing for disability.
Very good point. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so we would need
They're
to get
going
in
to show that
contact.
pattern.
Yep,
Yeah.
we need to get in contact with them and figure out, okay, how do we get this person on disability? What's the next step?
Presumably, even if even dealing with students, I would think that there's got to be records being kept.
Absolutely.
So I mean, you're gonna want to get those records for the disability filings. I would imagine that that's going to show the pattern right there.
Yep, and so that means that
it's also going to show a dedication to trying, which these bureaucrats like.
Yeah.
You're going to have to, or Jay is going to have to sign a release of information so that you are going to be able to get access and get information. Because if you just call Jay's therapist is going to have to say, I cannot confirm or deny, and you're not going to get anywhere. So that would be the next step then too.
Yes. So. Man, is such a...
I hate that. I hate that you're dealing with that. I hate that Jay's dealing with it. I hate... Yeah, it's just a shit situation.
Yep, all around. Yeah. Hope that helps. I know that's not... We don't have a whole lot for you, but I do think relieving that financial burden first, I think, is going to be important. Because I think the other thing that does is that frees you up to focus on other ways of being support and not just the financial. If I'm in this situation, it's hard to just not look at this as financial hardship on me.
Yeah.
And then if you're able to eliminate that, then now I can focus on like, oh, okay, now how can I be there for you mentally and emotionally?
Yeah. And right now, I know we just said like you don't have to put an end date on it right away, like, oh, it's 2 weeks from now, I'm going to cut you off or something. But start off with what we shared. And I would encourage you to eventually try and put some kind of end date on that, even if it's a year from now or 2 years from now. I mean, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but I would think about that for yourself once you're approaching the situation with Jay a little bit more, working towards maybe some extra help in other areas, then express like, hey, probably in the next so many months we'll start or we'll reduce or whatever, whatever the case is. So
let's make this our plan for 2024.
Or it could just be like, hey, we got you on disability now. I'm giving you say $2,000 a month. Well, disability's for $1,800 a month. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it down to $200 a month.
Yes. I was going to say that my family member I mentioned eventually once they got on disability, severe depression too, and just sounds super similar, but we'll still, like, different family members and stuff will send her like $100 worth of groceries, since that you can deliver that now, or things like that. And that makes a huge difference. She's like, thank you so much. That you can still help out here and there. That's not $2,000 a month for rent and like food for them, Yeah.
It's also helping out on your terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Man, if somebody just sent me groceries every now and then, I'd be ecstatic. Right? Like, this is great. Food showed up.
It is.
Does that mean you're taking some of that Hawaiian food back with you?
I thought he was going to pay for my McDonald's.
Nope.
Nope. Still no.
Still no. Still a solid no.
Can I have the Hawaiian food that I'm just going to
You can have one piece.
They're all on Jacob's desk, so...
I don't know how they all wound up over here.
I don't know either.
I do.
Well, thank you, lovely Spark. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Yep. As we wrap up the show, we want to remind you that if you sign up at patreon.com/therapy, you can get the extended show, ad-free, and a day early. That's a whole day early, as well as enjoy our live chat Discord community and our weekly deep dives, interviews, skill shares, research roundups, and rants. Whitney, what big thing have you released on the Patreon lately?
Crickets.
A swarm of crickets.
Lots of crickets.
Like the Old Testament God, Whitney has released the locusts.
We have, at this point, no idea what was released because we're recording this in advance.
Yeah. We are.
So hopefully something is released. We'll figure out what that is. Also, by the way, if anybody has any feedback for Lovely Spark and wants to put that either in the notes on Patreon or in Discord, please do so. Yeah. Because we've got a lot of listeners who work for social services for the county, for the state, whatever.
That's a
and
great
so
point.
Sacramento's a big place. If anybody of you happen to work in social work in the state of California, we're assuming California.
Yeah.
So if any of you work out there, maybe reach out on the Discord chat or anywhere else that you think you might be able to get a hold of old Lovely Spark.
Mm-hmm. Normally at this time, we would say thank you to all of the new Therapals, Therapods, Therodactyls, or Theraproducers that joined. But since we're recording in the past, we don't have any of that information. So we do thank you. We will get you next week. Also, it is the first of the month where we thank our Theropods and Therodactyls. Unfortunately, Jim's not here to read that. So we're saving that for next week, too.
Yeah, he's going to read it later.
He's going to read it. And we want to thank our Therapartners, Dirty B, Myra, and Pickett. Thank you very much for sponsoring the show.
Thank you.
And we want to especially thank our bosses, the Saccharin 16, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of our fan club, the Theraproducers. Thank you, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr., Mint, Smitty Scoop, Ben Duggan,
Dawn.
Oh, that's right.
Just like it's spelled.
That's right. Yeah. I hear the name all the time. I rarely see it. Judy Schneider, Kayla Lesenberry, Mr. and Mrs. and Mr. Hot Dog Scoop, Malia, Leon Kassab, Mason Miller, Richard Macy, Carolyn Albert, Kevin Chamberlain, Tess Miller, Sammy Scoop, Ben Stanley, slap in your face, Sarah Smith, I think I know her, Adam Hathaway, Byler T, University Jeff, Mike Helm, Paris, Samantha Cohn, Darren Cunningham, Lib, Team Monaco, Thunder Cougar, Falcon Scoop, Matt and Lisa Tangeman, Heyo, Oscar Swanrose, A Sunny Boy, Slurpee K, motherfucker, Sandra McWaffle, Dan Martin, and Hannah Marie.
And if you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited,
and why wouldn't you?
And enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time we have for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really do appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something that you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening this episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us on Facebook.com/podtherapy, on X @PodTherapyGuys, and now at Patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Talbot.
I'm Whitney.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week. All right, we've got a bonus question.
Bonus.